Warning: the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are based on psychic impressions and true life events that may be potentially frightening and or disturbing to some viewers. Any of the information that is shared in this production should not replace the advice of medical professionals and is intended for general purposes only. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey, Chasity.
Yes.
What's the name of this recording?
This episode's going to be bitchin'.
Ooh.
Yeah. Stranger Things pun, I guess you could say. Bitchin'.
Yeah, I like to say the word bitch in general, so,
Yeah.
bitch.
Bitchin' has taken on a different term, though.
I know.
These days. So it doesn't mean anything good, but this one is going to be 1980s bitchin'.
Yeah.
Insert 1980s music here. But anyways, guys, yes. So today we are going to start our very first, first episode of our last mini series of season 1. Man, that took a lot.
Wow, it's like time has flown by.
Yeah. So we're coming up. We're not quite at the end of season 1, but this will be our last mini series that will consist of 2 or more episodes. It'll definitely be more than 2. And we are going to start talking about psychic abilities in general and some things that are associated with that. But before we start talking about all the good stuff there, we wanted to go ahead and put out a episode dedicated just to spiritual protection, because it's very important to understand spiritual protection.
It's the most important thing, guys. If you take anything away, please let it be this episode.
Yeah, so you definitely want to understand this before you dive into really trying to tap into your natural intuitive gifts. We all have some type of intuitive gift, and some of them are stronger than others. Some of us will just use them for our day-to-day lives, and some of us, like me and Emily, might use them for other things. So, and that's all okay. But yeah, we just want to talk about spiritual protection and all the goodies there. So, it's been an interesting couple of weeks. And yeah, do you have anything you want to share that may be interesting news for the couple weeks that we've not recorded?
Oh, yeah. So, let's see. I have surgery coming up Wednesday. So, yay!
Yeah. The episode will be out before she has to go in, guys. So any positive thoughts and prayers for Em would be great. She's going to have a somewhat major surgery.
And I got to do a collab with Duran, which will come out probably 2 weeks from this episode. So, yeah.
And
I
what
tried
is the
to
collab
pre-record. The collab is about past lives. So, he was awesome enough to agree to let me practice on him, and I was able to pull 5 past lives out of my meditations, and pretty much we talked about them, and I wanted to see if he could validate some of it, which he did, and it was full of awesomeness. So, guys, if you want to watch it when it comes out, I highly recommend it because it was lit.
That's awesome. Heck yeah. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah. I have a new setup now, like with this, like if I do collabs, I have like a nice little overlay and I'm excited.
Nice.
Yes.
Well, I wanted to, I guess, talk about some worldly news because people seem to be very interested in a few topics, like the aliens and submarines. I know, 2 totally different things, but I just wanted to touch on, start with the aliens since that happened first. So last week, we were consumed by the Las Vegas aliens, or probably over the last 3 weeks. And that news is kind of dying off now as they found out about the submarine that went missing. I put out a little video from one of the high quality footage videos I could find, and I kind of dissected it a little bit, but I went by feeling of where I thought something was, like an intuitive feeling. And I was able to get a screen capture of some type of being. And it's, if you go through the video and you screen cap it throughout it, I mean, we're zooming in on a part that's like maybe an eighth of an inch of a screen of a, well, my cell phone, I have like a S22 Ultra, so it's kind of big compared to other ones, but still very small. I was able to pull that out of it, and I've seen a lot of different things. If you guys are studying any of the other videos that are lower quality, I would suggest that there's a possibility that those have been CGI'd. So just so you know. But in the submarine tragic situation, um, you know, I saw it implode on Monday, and I just kind of stayed out of it because, you know, at the end of the day, it's a distraction, but it's interesting. It's interesting distractions. Not the submarine. That's not, you know, in a light way. That's actually, you know, not very good. And prayers and thoughts for the family. But as far as the aliens, yeah, we've known there's been aliens, but it leaves you to think what else is going on in the world. I don't want to get too heavy in that, but we have a cover up, possibly submarine accident, and aliens have landed. What the fuck, 2023. So, interesting news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, Emily, do you have any experiences that you would like to share for the week?
Yes, I have two. So, the first one, while I was doing past life like meditation for Duran and trying to record and pre-record videos and stuff, I have an earthbound spirit that keeps trying to talk to me, and it's actually somebody I went to school with in high school and then like college, and I've been trying to get them to cross over, but they're being stubborn and they're just consumed by their guilt. And then recording with Duran, I started, and every time we record with Duran, whether it's me or Chas and we do our collabs with him through Lights at Midnight, there's always some kind of electronical like things going on. And during the recording, actually, my printer went off by itself. Um, my recording devices were being wonky. My phone was being wonky. Everything was being wonky. So, yeah. But Chastity, how about you?
Oh, yeah. So, there's a lot of things that's been going on, but I think the only interesting one that I'd like to share is as I was driving home, and it almost feels like a dream now. Thinking back, I had to ask myself, was I dreaming? Was this really a dream? And I had told Emily earlier this week, but on my way back home last Sunday night, I turned. I think it was onto my road, and I saw like this green orb with legs. And it wasn't very big, and I'm pretty sure it was a fairy. I'm just saying. This is my life now. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure I saw a green orb. It had two green legs. And yeah, so I've seen the orb lights before. I've seen multiple color orb lights. There are different things for different color orb lights. Not every colored orb is a fairy. The color orb fairy lights act in a very different way than normal orbs. So here's a little side lesson. If you see a little floaty orb in your house that's just going whoo and just floating around and then it disappears, that's not a fairy. Fairy orbs actually zoom. They fly and they disappear really fast. Sometimes they hover and stuff like that, but they actually have directional flight patterns. Okay, so that's how I've been able to tell the difference between orbs and fairies. So yeah, that was kind of interesting and funny. And in general, think I have a house visitor.
Mm-hmm.
There's energy in my house.
Ooh.
So the boy, my son, I call him the boy, son, um, he's fairly sensitive and he feels like there's something going on too. So I'm gonna have to take care of that. I'm kind of in a interesting mood, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm in a mood. So yep, that's about it.
Yeah, I have a headache because of the shitty weather.
Yeah, the weather's been awful.
Like, where's
Um,
summer? Like, I don't want it to be 60. We're supposed to have like 80s and 90s. What the fuck?
Yeah, and it's kind of weird. It's been pretty cold, which I know we have different things going on, but the storms, it's probably rained here almost 5 days straight, and it
Hmm.
hasn't been constant, but the ground is just
It's coming up
saturated.
here now. I
Yeah, and it
was
just hangs out.
I was supposed to go to Dorney Park on Monday, but that's not going to happen.
Right. Well, I've just noticed something looking at the weather patterns.
It's
Like,
weird.
it could be the radar, but it starts down in the Gulf of Mexico, and
Hmm.
I guess maybe the radar don't reach the other part. I assume it would though, because it was showing storms on the West Coast, and I'm on the East Coast. But it's like they're developing off the Gulf of Mexico, which is really, really odd.
Well,
They're just there, just churning. Like that's where the storms pop up, and they're in a line.
hmm,
They're literally, yeah, over the same spot.
did you see that news report though? I think it was like over Arizona or something, like in that general vicinity. And the guy is like the news or the weather guy. He's like, so there's some military like practice going on, but this over here is actually real rain. And I was like, what's that supposed to mean?
Yeah. Yes, I
Mm-hmm.
did. I believe I shared it somewhere, some way,
Mm-hmm.
in some fashion. Maybe I didn't know. I don't know. I did see it, and I think it's off the west coast of California,
Mm-hmm.
obviously the west.
Yes.
But um, yeah, I saw that. So unless it's CGI'd like everything else in the
Mm-hmm.
fucking world, then yeah, it don't surprise me. So it's interesting that this is just. I mean, because I've looked at the weather every day and scrolled out, and it's just like there's a line in the Gulf of Mexico, and unless this is radar issues, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's been there every day. So the probability, scientific probability, insert nerd emoji here, um is, it could be the radar, but it is interesting, and with that in mind, even more interesting. So there's a lot of weird shit going on. I'm just overall getting a general feeling that things have started to become even more ridiculous than they were before,
Yeah.
and yeah, the shape of our society and the things they keep playing. And I guess I'll just say what I really wanted to say about the submarine and the aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get it. I know these are real things and all, but they really are distractions, and they really are meant to keep us in a mode of continual sharing. So like, yeah, I've made my fair share of posts about one or the other,
Mm-hmm.
but as I did it, I realized it's like, I'm just contributing to the clusterfuck
Mm-hmm.
of illusions and shit that they're trying to, make for us by sharing these big topics and events. We just keep pushing agendas. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just the icing. That's just like an okay, iceberg right ahead, no pun intended. But seriously, that's just the top.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm in the maybe conspiracy theory realm, but you know what? A lot of them, like I've said before, have been proven. So over it.
Mm-hmm. Tired of these agendas.
I'm just tired of it in general. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we keep our face stuck in a phone most of the day or half the day and
Mm-hmm.
not really pay attention to real world problems and what's going on in your life. And we're all kind of stuck in that simulation, and or a lot of people, not
I
everybody.
was gonna
If you do
say
this
I
type of
spend
work,
most of the time sleeping now.
right? And I mean, fair play, but it constantly consumes our life. And
Mm-hmm.
I would like to challenge everybody to disconnect at some point in the next little bit and spend time with, your
In
family, your
nature.
friends, go outside.
I
Yeah,
want to
go
go
outside,
camping. I want to go in a
do
tent.
something. Yeah.
Just
So do something that makes you happy, that doesn't involve looking at your phone.
outside makes me happy. And
Hmm.
just, interestingly enough, I was having stomach pains the last 3 days. And whether it's, biological things going on, because, I'm not the healthiest due to, the endo and the IC and all that shit. But this is how I can usually tell if it's, health, like actual health versus energetic issues, is if I go outside and I'm miraculously better, that's how I know it's not health related and it is energetic or paranormally related.
Right. And our houses are contaminated with, I mean, every place is
Mhm.
now thanks to certain technologies, but, the EMF, electromagnetic fields, everything produces that. These
Mhm.
electronics produce that. We have yet to see the full blown effects of what that's really going to do. Because, guys, if you're not as old as me or older, then you may not realize that this wasn't always our way of
Mhm.
life. Uh, things have changed. I'm kind of disappointed. I'm kind of disappointed, and at least I got a cool childhood, and
Me
now we
too.
grow up, and it's easy. Yeah, I mean, like, I would never been able to connect with a lot of you guys that I've spoke with. We would have never met if it wasn't for the internet. It's a great
Mhm.
tool, but it's a
Ooh,
double-edged
I do want
sword. But I'll get off
I
my
do wanna say
soapbox.
this, y'all. The I-95 bridge is allegedly supposed to be fixed in, like, 3 weeks, so
Well, that's a great thing because I know it's causing a lot of
I
problems
had
up
to take
there.
a detour yesterday, and it was terrible. But I got a nice
Yeah,
scenic view, so it wasn't that terrible. However, when it downpours and, rains, because you're right next to the Susquehanna, that shit floods. So, it's not great when you have to
yeah,
go
that's
that
awful.
way. Yeah. And it was actually flooding
Yeah,
today. Even just driving back home, it was really fucking flooded.
bigger inner cities and flooding and water and air quality and all that. We just got to see that with the
Mhm.
fires and how the bigger inner cities that didn't have trees, the trees couldn't eat
Mhm.
it. Like, so it makes
I'm
it
still
really
sick from
hard.
that, from the
I know
fucking
you.
smoke.
Yeah, it was really bad. It got up to like 492 was the highest one I see. I think it's parts per million in the air. It
192?
was really bad. 400.
Yeah, that was where it was in, like, Lancaster. That's yep,
Mhm.
my friends were dying, especially the ones that had asthma, so
Yeah, that's crazy. It's wild. So much things have
mhm,
happened. So definitely take the time to reset. And it actually is a great way to introduce again our
mhm.
episode, spiritual
Yeah,
protection. Yeah, I mean, seriously, because this actually has a lot to do with it because it's soul sucking
it
to a
is.
degree. Like yeah, so it is part of it. It's not just, spiritual protection is not just about, how can I say this? It's not just about the supernatural or the malevolent. It's not just about that. It's about a lot of
Mhm.
things. It's about even people. And that's what we're getting ready to dive into, guys. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and just get started. We're going to
But
dive
before
on
that,
in.
we are 2 psychic mediums specializing in the
Oh,
paranormal.
yeah. We are, aren't
Mhm.
we?
Yes.
Yes, we are two psychic mediums that specialize in the paranormal. Our purpose is to shed light on what goes bump in the night. That's why we call this
Lights at
podcast
midnight. Ding.
Lamp. Alrighty. So, what is spiritual protection? Spiritual protection is the ability to protect ourselves and which is our aura, that includes our energy field, and possibly others from outside energy influences that are meant to harm or persuade your free will. And you can do this with your own energy, objects, sacred objects, your religion, your spirituality, divine guidance, but most importantly, your intentions. Good luck finding that on Google because I wrote
Yeah.
that. It's not on Google, but that is what I personally define spiritual protection as. Emily, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that, but that is kind
Yes.
of how I
There's a
feel
lot
about
of
it.
things like that are, that can go into it and not just what you said, but we're going to get into that here. So,
Right. And, why do we need spiritual
I'll tell you
protection?
why. Because if we don't have spiritual protection, it could mess us up emotionally, mentally, physically, psychologically, and spiritually. And it's not a fun time and it can really mess up just your overall health. And I'm a good example of that because I'm clairsentient.
Yeah, and even if you're
Yeah.
not clairsentient, it's still what, how can I say this? It pushes it
Hmm.
even further if you're clairsentient, but you will pick up these energies no matter who you are. I mean, truly, and it's a situational thing as well. Just because somebody gets affected emotionally from it doesn't mean the next person will get affected the same
Mhm.
way, because generally, depending situationally, it's targeting certain factors that affect multiple
Mhm.
people. And now this is from a standpoint of negative energy or
Mhm.
entity, and not so much as a direction of a person maybe sending you something, even just their intentions, because they don't have to be a witch, or they don't have to have superpowers, because technically none of us do, to be able to actually send you something. But in the sense of, an entity or negative energy, it can come in all those
Mhm.
forms. So, you really you really have to think about that. And so who needs spiritual protection?
Everybody. And, I want to add two
Yes.
things here. So, when I was younger, and I don't know why I like already knew this, but y'all know by listening to us on this podcast, and if you follow me on my channel, that I have a potty mouth. Okay. And I used to get in trouble as a child for it, but it's not my fault because I learned it from my grandpa. But my mom would be like, "Stop cursing." And I'd be like, "That's not what cursing is. Cursing is when you wish harm on somebody." And that's literally how you could curse somebody. Even if you are not aware of it, you can curse somebody unintentionally by just, you know, saying like, "Fuck you. I hope you blah, 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 blah." You know what I mean? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
then the
100%.
second thing I wanted to say as just a random like, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so while I was gaming today, all of a sudden, I started speaking in a Russian accent. Why? I don't fucking know. I don't even know how to do a Russian accent, but I was doing it very well. And my friends were like, "Why are you speaking in a Russian accent?" And then it occurred to me, oh, there's somebody around here that's Russian. And it was a dead person, and I was picking up their accent. So, yeah,
Interesting.
it's gone now.
That is interesting. Well, that's good. But yeah, so who needs spiritual protection? We all
Yeah.
need spiritual protection in some way, shape, or form. So, and it again is circumstantial. Just because Emily, she's more clairsentient, she's going to pick up more feelings in her body. She's going to notice it more. For people that have trauma, different types of trauma bring different types of attack,
Yeah.
I guess you could say. So we talk a lot about SA victims. A lot of times they will have a lot of trauma, which is basically food for a negative entity or energy.
Yep.
And it gets real sticky. But just know that that's another example of people that really need spiritual protection. And a lot of times, people don't even think about that type of protection.
Mhm.
It's off their radar. People that are in the spotlight.
Yeah.
I've worked with people that, I got to be really careful how I say this, because it's
Mhm.
somebody that's very well known. I'll put it to you that way. The person that I was working with, they had a lot of people basically giving them the evil eye. They had a lot of people giving them, bad vibes because of their life choices. And, you have to protect yourself against
Mhm.
that. So I was able to get this person to help them understand and help them with some of the products that I make, the metaphysical products. And I personally made two sets actually for this person. One to help banish the stuff in their home, and the other set for their own, like, energizing and, just any like nervousness, depression, and blocking people's intentions. Because when you're in the public eye, you have all kinds of people with all kinds of intentions and all kinds of opinions. And, it even happens to us. And so it's, everybody to some degree needs it. Independent. I mean, this is taught in certain religions and stuff like that, but this really resonates and radiates through us as a collective. So we all need spiritual protection in one way, shape, or form. And then next, I was going to ask the question, what is the importance of belief and confidence without pride in spiritual
Yeah,
protection?
that is important. So it's kind of like when you have the belief and confidence without pride. It just gives you more power within yourself to be able to pretty much manifest and get things done in general. And then if you add the pride, I feel like the pride part waters it down.
Well, it gets in
Yeah.
the way because, you have to, the most important part of believing you're protected and what you're doing to protect yourself, the actions, the cause and effect here is if you do not have belief or confidence that what you're doing
It's
will
not gonna
work,
work.
your intentions, it will not work. And if you have the belief and the confidence, but if you add the pride to it, the pride can actually get in the way and block
Mhm.
it because it leads me into the final question
Yep.
for this section. Do we do this all by
Nope.
ourselves? No, we do not. So we have to take the I, the
Mhm.
me, out of this equation. And sometimes it's easy to forget
Yeah.
that, but we really don't, provide total spiritual protection for ourselves. It is given to us by higher benevolent beings, divine beings. The protection is there. We already have a certain amount of protection. We have guardian angels that we are born with that only come in during traumatic things to basically save our
Mhm.
life. For example, I was in a car wreck. I was 17, didn't do anything like this, didn't even really think about anything like this at that point in my life. And we were in a snowstorm, and the back tires fishtailed on a curve that was kind of like at a downward angle. And we almost slid off. If we would have slid completely off the road, we would have dropped down like a 20-foot embankment with nothing but trees on the other side, probably would have passed away. Lo and behold, at the same time we're going around this curve, we head on an ambulance. We literally head on an ambulance. We wasn't going very fast. I mean, it was snowing. It's in North Kakalaki, so if there's an inch of snow, if there's a quarter of an inch of snow or ice on the ground, you're not driving here. Everything gets shut down. Okay, so, but
That's
it's
because
true.
you're in the South.
Right. So people don't driving it as much as the north, like in
Mhm.
school normally they'll have like snow days and stuff like that, which might even be a thing of the past because where everybody was able to go to school online before, now they
Mhm.
expect it, so probably don't get snow days anymore, kids, sorry, but we used to get
Uh-huh.
them and they were awesome, not to rub it in or anything, but uh
Yeah, we make fun of you
I know it's
guys.
fucked up.
We make fun of you guys when you guys close your schools for an inch of snow on the ground. We think it's hilarious up here.
Right. So yeah, and it was great though. We had to make them up at the end, but it was great for the time being because it always happened when we had those long semesters with like maybe one or two holidays, and so it
Mhm.
was really nice. I'm not going to lie. But back on topic.
Mhm.
We can't do this by ourselves. Do we have our free will and the ability and the intentions to choose? Yes, that is so
Mhm.
important. But the biggest thing to remember is you have to have belief, confidence without pride, and you do not do this by
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
Gratitude in the spirit goes a long way.
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to move on because we have three sections. So that was kind of the first like question and answer
Mhm.
section. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next one. So basically, it's going to cover situations and how to know if you're under spiritual attack. So, types of things to protect yourself against. So, we've made a list and kind of subcategorized those lists. And one of the things, the question is, how can negative energy or entity affect you and your own energy field? Well, we're going to discuss kind of that whole ordeal throughout this. So keep that in mind. So, first we have spirits, beings, and entities.
Mhm.
So, Emily, would you like to get started on types of spirits, beings, and entities that you would have to protect yourself from?
Sure. So we got your demons, you got some elementals, you got negative earthbound spirits, you got poltergeists and other thought forms, you have, familiars and entities that can be created from like dark magic, witchcrafty things, which could fall under
Yeah.
familiars and other thought forms and stuff. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep. And also spiritual
Yes.
spouse or sex spirits. You have
Incubus, succubus.
things. Yeah, stuff like that too. So, you know, when you have situations like that, it depends on the level of severity on how you'll have to protect yourself. I will go ahead and say in part three, we talk about the different types of tools and ways you can protect yourself. So we'll get into that. But yeah, definitely, you have to gauge the situation, and this is where discernment comes in. You can have the intuition about what is happening, but without discernment, the intuition is only going to help you predict things and not be able to make valid and appropriate decisions on how to rid yourself of something like this. And this can be anything from just saging your house to seeking out somebody that can give you a deliverance, depending on the severity of the entity.
And then we have haunted items.
Yep, haunted items. So we talked with Durant about this a while back. The same fella she was speaking of at the beginning of the episode. So haunted items, very interesting
Oh my
subject.
god, yeah.
So it just depends. Like, for example, if you had seen our the episode that we did about the time that I met Annabelle, you know there's something special about haunted
I
items.
learned some new things about haunted items.
Please
Yeah. So
share.
while I was speaking to Duran, I was also communicating with Archangel Michael. And as I was talking to him, I was seeing portals. And I even had an astral realm experience before the recording of a big portal in his house. But I wanted to focus more on the portals on each of the dolls because when you mess with like spirit boxes and stuff and you set up a line of communication, you can create a portal. Same thing if you astral project and whatever. But so when he was communicating with each item, he was inadvertently like creating portals for each of the items he was investigating. So I was telling him that as an extra step, he has to make sure he closes all the portals when he's done with the object. Because he usually, I think he uses, or when he investigates, he does like one at a time or so on. I forget if he's doing multiple at the same time or just one, but um when he uses a spirit box and he's communicating with the haunted object, he's creating a portal by using the investigation tools in addition to the item that is haunted. So,
Right. Right. And this goes back to like attracts like. This goes back to when you seek out the paranormal specifically, you can also create problems for yourself. Again, using the spirit boxes and all kinds of stuff like that. You're attracting things to
mhm,
you. They're not attracted to your physical form, they are attracted to your energetic
mhm,
form. And they will use your energy unwillingly. They will not ask you for it. They will take your energy and continue to evolve and
yep,
grow themselves. Yeah. So, and, you know, any type of work you do like that can theoretically open up a portal or a place on energy resonance that actually stays behind. We leave energy everywhere we go. It's almost like leaving a fingerprint. And
mhm,
however long that energy takes to dissipate
yeah,
depends. I mean, it just all depends on the event. That's how you have residual hauntings for tragic, is for example, like everyday things like getting up and making coffee or tragic
yeah,
events. So, and that's a part of the same thing. Haunted objects, haunted items, they come, if it's truly a haunted object, there is an entity attached to it because of the reverence we give it. Like
mhm,
we have to give it attention for it to grow. If you lock it in a box, you throw it in the trash, you get rid of it, whatever you do, the more energy you give it, the more active the object
My
becomes.
spirit guide is talking to me right now. He's saying too that you can make an object haunted. If you think it's haunted, and you remember how I said you can accidentally create a portal with your devices, and if you feel like you have an item that's haunted and it's not, and you start talking to it with the spirit box and you create a portal, you're still drawing entities to you because they want to talk to you and use you as a battery. and they can put themselves in that doll if they want, or attach themselves to that doll if they want to, because they know you're like seeking spirits out, and they can either come to you because now there's a portal in that doll or at that doll, and they can just stay there or move on or whatever, but you're still drawing stuff in, and it could attach to the doll. So that's, he just wanted me to, or
Or
me,
you.
yeah,
Or you.
or you, or yeah, exactly.
Like attracts like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So he
like attracts
he was
like.
just saying, "Hey, don't forget to say
Yep,
this."
exactly. And, I got beef. You want the
let's
beef?
let's get
I
the
got the
beef.
beef, okay? The beef. I want to cover this at some point, but I'm just going to briefly talk about it right now. It's the freaking haunted dolls that people are selling
Oh my
online.
god.
It angers me. It
I agree.
angers
It
me.
pisses me off.
Yeah,
And
so they give you a story. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, even like when you go to Paracons and stuff, they have these booths where you can buy haunted objects. And first of all, I don't like that because you're already bringing haunted shit to a haunted location, so you're making it worse. And then you're gonna have some uneducated person buy it because they think it's cool. And either like they're either getting ripped off because, it's not haunted and they're just doing it to get money, or B, it is haunted and now you're giving them a whole host of problems, but they think it's cool.
Right. Generally, it's not haunted, in my personal opinion, in my humble opinion. IMHO. Because they give you a story. Okay. So they're giving you a story with these dolls. They either make them positive or negative. I found out. I just found out haunted positive dolls exist on the
Mm,
internet. And yeah, which is
that's
crazy.
I
And
honestly have a problem with what you just said because nothing positive is gonna attach itself to a doll or item.
right. And yeah, and so what they do is they give you a storyline. They tell you about the doll, the type of spirit that's associated with the doll. You get this long drawn out story about its origins, where it came from, and then you bring it home with that belief and intention that something is in it, and it then like attracts
Or it
like.
creates a thought form because you're so heavily invested in the idea that it's haunted.
That's yeah, that's what I'm getting at. That's
Oh.
that's exactly the point. You like attracts like. The energy is attracted, and then it starts creating
Mhm.
shit, whatever that could be.
Exactly.
It can be anything. Your just belief and intention is enough to, like Emily said, create a thought form.
Or you create a portal and it's something that is already existing comes in.
Right. And portals are created, and they can be
Yes.
closed. We talked about this, a little while back about vortexes and portals and the difference. In my opinion, a vortex is an
Yeah.
area. The portal is a specific. There can be multiple portals in a vortex. There probably could be vortexes within a vortex, but really you're going to find
Mhm.
portals in vortexes and
And
whatnot.
vortexes and people
So
like me.
yeah, it's possible. Very possible. And that goes to, it's an important point that we should get to later,
Mhm.
definitely about that. Because I think that's our next topic, which is portals. We've actually talked about it quite a bit
Yeah.
already, but portals in general, Emily.
Yeah, so, there's so many ways one can create a portal, and there are ways that portals can created that are not from people, whether it just exists in like a land area or landscape due to natural events such as like ley lines and natural energies, or things that happened in past situations, like historical things like battles and stuff, wars can create portals. You can do something in front of a mirror and boom, you got a portal. I mean, there are so many you can talk, like I said, talk to haunted items with spirit boxes and boom, create a portal. You can use Ouija boards and boom, you create a portal. Like there are so many ways. Even when you astral travel, you can accidentally create portals like I do sometimes and then I have to fix it. Um and I'm trying to think
Yep.
witchcraft, you can make portals. Demonic Yeah,
Summoning.
demonic or, negative, other negative entities or malicious entities can actually create their own portals. And then you have your vortexes, which, I mean, again, can happen through like nature-y things like ley lines and specific um, places. Mirrors, when you have them back to back to back, like next to each other, across from each other. Am I skipping anything? I feel like I am.
I don't think so. And it creates space. Mirrors,
Yeah.
like, it creates another space physically in a
Yeah.
way. I don't know how to explain
It's
it,
like
but
another
that's the best way I can
dimension.
explain it.
It's like a dimension
Kind of,
within the
yeah.
mirror kind of situation.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not quite like a full dimension, but it's a
Mhm.
dimension. I don't know how else to explain it because it's not necessarily 100%
Mhm.
natural. So it could be a portal.
Anything.
Because I think vortexes are created more by earth energy than
Mhm.
anything. I don't know why I feel that way. That's just my opinion. And I think portals are created by all of it. And I mean, they can all be created, but portals are more or less can be created by people more so than a vortex. People aren't creating
You know what
vortexes
I'm seeing
much.
right now? I'm seeing when you have multiple portals close together that some portals can eat other portals.
Yeah, merging like black
Yeah.
holes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen all kinds of colored portals. A lot of times I see green or blue, though,
I see
interestingly
black
enough.
or like bright white light.
I've seen black ones. I've seen black doors.
Mhm.
It goes back to that client I was talking about earlier. That was
Mhm.
wild. She had 4 black doors in her house. It was wicked. And they were portals, but they were very sharp. They looked like doors, though. So portals just don't have to be like circles with
Yeah.
swirls in them. And I saw the doors in Emily's house. Those actually look like
Mhm.
doors. But sometimes they'll be circular, and not everybody's going to see that, and I understand that. But yeah, so you definitely have to protect yourself against that because portals, you have things coming in and out of them. It is said that there is always a gatekeeper at portals. I personally don't feel that way,
Mm-mm.
but I know there are sometimes that way. You also have land keepers over different parts of the land. Spirits
Yes.
tend to do that. So it's interesting. But yeah, definitely want to make sure you are closing out your
Oh
portals
my god, yeah.
if you can, which is not something it's easier said than done. And it's something that we really don't do. We have energy and divine guidance and stuff.
Mhm.
Like I was able to close out the portal with divine
Yeah,
help,
when I closed the
but this isn't.
portals in my house, I needed to ask Archangel Michael for assistance.
Right. It's not something that we're just like, waving a wand and the portal's closing here. I want to
Mhm.
be very specific about that because some people think it's like that and it is not. It's about, having a connection with spirit and divine and the belief and the intention again to be able to do stuff like that.
Mhm.
All right. Moving on. You want to protect yourself against ding, 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 other people,
Mhm.
surprisingly.
Is it?
You have energy vampires. Yeah, yeah, right. Sarcastically,
Honestly,
surprisingly.
I'm more afraid of
Uh,
people than I am of spirits.
right, right.
Yeah.
Well, you have energy
Yep.
vampires. People sometimes don't even realize they're energy vampires, but the most serious case of an energy vampire is when they realize they are,
Oh.
because then it's
Oh,
directional.
it's
They
intentional
know it.
too. Yeah.
Exactly. So you have these people causing chaos because their spirit's all in a hizzy and a mess and they're disconnected. It's almost like spirit showing me, because I'm channeling most of this episode. We didn't really do scripted on this, and this is just what I'm seeing. Okay. I'm seeing people and their actions and how they're dramatic, but I see the actual person outside of themselves. It's a
Mhm.
disassociation. So, energy vamps,
Yep.
there is another being present. Jesus Christ.
I was gonna say, uh, one of the people I'm working with is an energy vampire, but it's the client I've been
Yeah.
talking to you about. But I feel like it's partially due to the fact that she is, you know,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that's exactly what I was being shown just now. Because, like, I see this disassociation, you're actually being bumped out. kind of
Mhm.
set back. Same thing, in my opinion, is disassociation, but it gets deeper than that. We'll just keep it there. But yeah, so
Mhm.
a lot of people don't really realize it, but a
Yeah.
lot of times energy vampires are people that constantly need to be fed something. Sometimes it can be trauma related. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
every person that is an energy vampire it has a spirit. But in general, that's exactly what I was just shown about energy
I
vampires.
am, or I should say, I get a lot of energy vampires drawn to me. I mean, you've probably already noticed.
Yeah,
It's
you get a lot of trolls too.
I get a lot of trolls and energy vampires.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to put you on blast here. I'm being honest. Like
It's true.
you somehow attract people with the same energy.
I do.
And yeah, one troll, like one if you've seen one troll, like guys, look, when you're reading through comments and you see like that troll guy or that troll
Mhm.
girl or whatever they identify as and a troll and fucking like they all have when you read their comment, it gives you the
Yeah.
same energy. They all have the same vibe. So you want to protect yourself against that
Mhm.
vibe. It's like they could come together and unite and make a troll city. They need a bridge big enough to fucking live under.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, people like that are generally
Yep.
miserable. So miserable attracts miserable. So they're definitely attracting negative shit in their life and they know nothing about spiritual protection. Anyways, moving on. Alchemy. Alchemy or magic, bro. Magic. I just put alchemy as like a
Yeah.
broad thing. So you do have people that practice magic. You have more people practicing magic these days than anything. Like, and I think in the past ever probably. I don't know. Maybe back in the day, ancient times, maybe it was different then. But you know, all that kind of stopped. Which technically, ritualistic things can be identified as magic, and that's done in every day. You're doing rituals every day of your life.
Yep.
So, is everything magic?
Ooh. Did you notice
Maybe.
though, with
Dun,
COVID
dun,
going
dun.
around, it got worse though with the black magic? Like all that energy,
Uh,
more people are doing
well,
it.
yeah. If you depend, yeah. If you're okay, yeah. Dependent. I didn't know which
Yeah.
way you were going with that. Is in society or
All of it.
leaders? Because I think about it more in
Mhm.
leaders, yeah. But is in general people and doing magic. Yes, that's the problem. Is you have people that want to do baneful magic, and you don't have to do anything to this person directly to be in their
Mhm.
target. It could be an indirect hit, guilty by association. It can be a direct hit, and people that try to change your free will or your health or your situation. And it is done, carried out through intentions, belief, and with spirits, just quite frankly. But yeah, the people definitely do baneful magic. And you have to really just be prepared, I guess you could say. You can't really be, but so
Mhm.
prepared. You can have your spiritual energy and benevolent entities around you and all that, but the stuff still can get through because sometimes it is stronger what other people can do than what spirit can do or a malevolent spirit can do because a person is living, which is a continual energy
Mhm.
source. So, and they can keep doing this, that, and the other. You know, I've known of people to do bad things
Yep.
to people. I'm not getting into any details. It is
Mhm.
real. Magic is real. Okay, so please don't take that lightly. With the people category, we also have
Yep.
brainwashing.
When anybody tries to take away your free will and tries to take away the capability of someone to think for themselves, you get led into the whole brainwashing thing. And I don't know about you, Chaz, but I feel like higher officials and higher people in society are more likely to do that for the masses.
Right. And that's where, you can be brainwashed or modeled after and all this kind of stuff by
Yep.
individuals. But we were talking a little bit about this at the beginning of the episode.
Cults. Oh, sorry.
Cults. Cults. Yes,
Yeah.
cults. Spiritually protect yourself against cults.
Yeah.
They're bad. Don't drink the fucking
For
Kool-Aid.
real.
Seriously.
There's a reason
Uh,
why we say
but
that.
it's like there's Right, and there's metaphysical Kool-Aid, and then there is just Kool-Aid that we get in our social
Mhm.
media. Again, we talked about this a little bit earlier in the episode about, the submarine and how they kept that on the news and replaced other things. There was so many other things that went on this week
Yeah.
outside of the submarine that just flooded our socials. So if you guys are interested, you can go take a look. There's other people covering the big things that happened while we all were distracted. Also, too, the brainwashing from modeling
Yeah.
citizens. You have to, and this is where discernment comes in. You know, there's spiritual protection in discernment. And again, intention and discernment are the two biggest things. And it's something that you kind of have to earn. I know that sounds awful. You're going to earn it with age. You're going to earn it with experience. You're going to earn it from spirit. Some people are just born with it and some people are not. And this isn't a situation where everybody gets a trophy for participation. And I hate to be real, but I'm being real,
Mhm.
honestly. I mean, that's
Yep.
facts.
I wanted to
So
add too, like if you notice in society, they're trying to teach like things that are actually good. They're trying to train your brain to thinking it's bad or bad is good. So if you notice the whole influx of satanic stuff in Hollywood, that's a good example. They're trying to whatchamacallits, I can't think of the word.
yeah, yeah, and that comes in the form of within religious situations, that's the devil, the greatest lie. It's the manipulation. If you want to use that as a point of reference, the devil, quote unquote, which we know there's many devils. There's not
Mhm.
just one Satan. There's
Desensitize
many
is what I was
Satans.
trying to go for. They're trying to desensitize people
Yeah.
into thinking it's okay.
Right. And in a religious way, they look at it as the devil tries to be like God and imitate, and then, this becomes good, this becomes good. It's a
Mhm.
perversion. So I guess the biggest word you can associate that with is a perversion of what is acceptable. But then you can go into the questions is what is acceptable in society these
Mhm.
days? And a lot of it can be considered not morally right, but it's been made morally right. But then you go back to being, well, what are the morals? So it's
Yep.
diluted. It's like a veil that's been put over your eyes, and that's again where your discernment and intuition come in. You don't have to be a psychic medium or a psychic or an intuitive to have discernment. Discernment is a term that is not just for people that practice. Discernment is for everyone.
Mhm.
So it's just like when COVID hit. I've told this 100 times. I was sitting in the living room. I was watching the news channel. I see this come across it. And I had two friends staying with me at that time, husband and wife, and they laughed at me when I told them, I said, this is going to change the world. And I've never sat down and said anything like that. The first time I ever saw it, I said, this is going to get bad.
Mhm.
This is going to change the world. That was a discernment. I was not practicing mediumship at that point. I was kind of dabbling in it, I guess you could say. I was getting used to it. I was coming to understand what I was capable of and actually what had been happening to me. And that's a prime example of discernment. You bullshit
Mhm.
meter. Let's just call it a bullshit
Yeah.
meter, right? So you have to have that with people. So, and there's different types. Um, another thing that is kind of a touchy subject, but bear with us here, is having multiple sexual relations with people. Some people think that there's no implications when it comes to spiritual side effects, and some people do, and that's okay. I lean to think that when you are having sexual relations with a person that is not spiritually healthy,
Mhm.
you are actually bringing on their problems. It doesn't have to be sexual either. It can be a close relationship,
Yep.
just a friendship.
Mhm.
So if you have a friend that, I could use this as an example, another sensitive subject. If you are a recovering, a person in recovery, but your best friend is not in recovery, and you're around this person, you're more likely to get back in those bad
Yes.
habits. So you take that scenario in a way, and I'm not, don't come for me here. Y'all get what I'm saying, and you apply it to spiritual
Mhm.
stuff. It's
It's
very much
so
like
in
that.
rehabs, and I know this because I studied psychology and stuff, they tell you right off the bat, do not associate with anybody that is any kind of addict of any sort, anybody with any addictions. Do not, because you are more likely to relapse. And then
Yeah,
and think of it
exactly.
this way too. When you have, partners, whether you're in a relationship or not, if you got to protect yourself, your physical body, right? So what do? You have some sort of, protection like condoms and all that stuff. Well, you got to do the same thing, but in a spiritual kind of way as well. So you don't bring on the other person's issues to yourself.
Right, and if you're spiritually grounded, it doesn't matter how attracted you are to that person. If something's saying, "Maybe I
Yeah.
shouldn't," and on every other level, maybe you
Mhm.
shouldn't.
And I'm just gonna say
So
this, how I got that succubus, uh, or incubus was because the person I was with was not spiritually sound, and they were a mess, and I got their, uh, demonic entity.
which was causing that person's perversions.
Correct.
Yeah, and that happens a lot in even relationships
Mhm.
these days. Um, if you are in a situation, I'm wondering if I want to share this or not. And it's not like a story of mine, it's just the implications
Yeah.
of it. If you have somebody that has perversions thoughts, like really, like they're just different in that way sexually, like they have well, we're all grown, I hope, listening to this. We have caught some youngins listening. Close
Mhm.
your ears. Not youngins, but teenagers. Like, and it's actually probably good to know if you're in your late teens, or something like
Mhm.
that. You just have to be careful about who you're around, because if they have weird perversions, sometimes it's normal. A lot of times it's normal, but sometimes it can actually be a spirit.
Yep.
So we're not, yeah, I mean, it's what it is. It's facts. It's not,
Yeah.
people can take that however they want, but it's the truth.
I will give an
You pick
example.
that up. That becomes a part of your life.
I, like I said, have some whatever about me attracts some questionable people. And in one of my workplaces, so you don't know which one, there was somebody who was under influence of, and you've seen it, Chas. It was creepy AF, and they were causing the perversions of that person.
Yep.
It was gross.
Yeah, I remember.
Hmm.
It was definitely weird. And that will cause people to act in certain
Yep.
ways, sexually and different stuff. So, without getting too graphic, it's a good thought. It's something that people need to think about. If you're trying to protect yourself spiritually, mentally, physically, and all that, just keep that in mind for
Hmm.
sure. And then, we have next category, land and place. So, you know, Emily and we ended up having two different situations. And if you've listened, unless this is your first episode, and you haven't heard some of the other stuff, places we used to live, the
Yeah.
land was
Uh-huh.
fucked. The Yeah, so like all of episode 5 of our podcast is about Stokes County, North Carolina. I used to live there. The has so much history, so much background. I was talking to somebody on Instagram today. Even the quartz in the ground, like having a lot of different types of minerals, can affect what happens in the area. A lot of traumatic events. If you're in a place, even one of my clients, like one of my clients recently, I had told her, I'm like, look, if it doesn't get better, it might be the area you're in, because I've lived in a place like that, places that are highly spiritual, places where the veil is thinner. You have to protect yourself against places like that. And unfortunately, sometimes that, you can clear the energy from a place, And if the earth isn't healed, you have to find somebody that can help you do
Mhm.
that, or help the earth heal, to be able to continually live there. Has anybody ever seen Amy Allen work? You know, the Dead Files? That's kind of what we're
Mhm.
talking about here, is a good example. You have, land situations. I've seen black rooted vines covering houses intuitively. And sometimes, I had my client go in and she actually had the same vision I did. I had it in my like pre channeling before I speak to the clients, because I always channel before I talk to my new incoming clients. And I saw the same vision she had. She had the same vision about the black vines. I had her cut them away, and it helped. But in certain situations, if you cannot protect yourself against the land or the place that you're in, you have to leave. But sometimes you can
Mhm.
clear it. Of course, it might not be so bad. It might not be on a extreme levels, what I'm trying to
Mhm.
get at. Sometimes it is though. So you definitely want to, listen to part 3. We're going to dive into that in just a few minutes, about how you can you
I
can
can't
protect your
imagine what
place.
the people living in Gettysburg, though, are going through right now, like, especially the ones that are more intuitive, because I know
Right.
when I go there, whenever that will be, I'm gonna have problems. I feel.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. A good example of that was when I went to Virginia. And what was the name of the place? Sometimes I knew something. So I can't remember, but I stayed at the Days Inn, and there's a battlefield there. And I didn't know that the Days Inn was right next to the Civil War Museum. And I had so many visions. This was on the way to go see Annabelle, and I had so many visions, and I ended up seeing like 100 dead people. It was just wild. So yeah, places you have to protect yourself from, and if you're not prepared, because I was not prepared for that, even though I had my little goodie bag, I had holy oil, I had sage, I had Palo Santo, I had my stones, I had candles. Did none of that shit
Mhm.
work because I wasn't prepared. I was
You
caught
also
off
have to make a
guard.
special note too, like, even if, like, the land wasn't haunted to begin with, if you're within, like, a very dense population of people, just their negative energy can combine and make it very uninhabitable spiritually.
Yep, this is facts. Big inner
Mhm.
cities. We've talked about this before. If you're going to go down into the city and you are anywhere near an empath or clairsentient, you want to
Mhm.
protect yourself. And it's just a
Yep.
thought that I
I
consider
wish I
facts.
could
So
change where I live. Because
right,
I didn't
I get
know.
it. And even small towns
Yeah.
sometimes do that. It doesn't have to be a big city. It can be a small town because of like what has happened there, and the choices of the people that are now passed
Mhm.
on continue to affect an
Yes.
area. So what is it going to look like in the inner cities when you have a city, a whole block that's nothing but
Mhm.
addicts, unfortunately,
Kensington?
and I'm not talking down to anybody that has been by any means. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, what are the implications on a spiritual level to a place when they're all gone? Like, how haunted,
Mhm.
how infected in a way will that place be because of
Also,
the
like, if
stuff
you
they
think
went
about,
through?
like, dense populations too, how many of them use Ouija boards? How many are using black magic? How many people are doing other things too? And then you combine that with thought forms and all that stuff, it's just gonna be a clusterfuck.
Right. So ultimately, the thing is, these are situations that you want to be spiritually prepared for. That's quite a long list. We could have added more. The point is, spiritual protection is key. And the last thing, considering Emily just brought up
Mhm.
Ouija boards, is your divination tools. So if you practice divination in any way, shape, or form, you will want to keep your divination tools cleansed,
Don't
or
do it.
or you end up with, it depends. And this is one of those discernment
Yeah.
things. Like, if you do, some people use Ouija
Mhm.
boards and that's their preferred method and they never have any problems. I would say there's probably some people that are more professional at it than others,
Mhm.
is per se. If you don't know what you're doing, don't use it. I don't recommend using a Ouija board at
Yeah.
all. But if you have no, I guess you could say, foundation in spirituality or your spiritual protection, something you don't want to use, even cards, I don't recommend people just getting cards and just start
Mhm.
using them. I think it's something that you need to work up to, and I think it's something that you need to understand. You have to ask for divine protection because you have things that can influence the
Yeah.
outcome. I've done this myself.
Honestly, I feel like you should be able to not, or how am I going to phrase this? You should be able to do your mediumship without the cards before you get the cards. That's just my opinion.
Right. And that would knock it. I understand what you're saying, but in all actuality, that would knock out a lot
Mhm.
of things, or a lot of people, I mean, and a lot of situations. I think people raise their mediumship sometimes with cards,
Mhm.
because mediumship being there's not everybody can't be a medium. Medium is communicating with dead. You would want to do it with your psychic
That's what I
abilities.
mean.
Just to clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify for
You know what
everybody
I'm thinking.
because not every yeah, yeah, but just in case people don't know the
I
difference, there
know.
is a difference between psychic, yeah, and mediumship. So if you're going to do it, overall, just keep in mind that you want to keep those cards cleansed with smoke, candlelight, crystals. It doesn't have to just be cards, though. I mean, Emily, she goes a little bit further than I do personally with cleansing things. Like I have divination rods and stuff like that. That's copper; it cleanses itself. But Emily, would you like to share some of your routines? Because I know you do a little bit more cleansing than myself.
Yeah, so like when I do my cards, whatever cards I use for like a day, I cleanse them and then I'll even sometimes put crystals on top of them because I don't want anything like if I don't cleanse my entire house, I just want to make sure that nothing can, get absorbed into the cards. So I'll always put like a crystal with them as well. Even if I use like smoke and stuff. I usually like smoke. That's my preferred way because
Yeah,
fire is purifying. Yeah.
yeah. So what I use is candlelight.
Okay.
Before I do any type of channeling, unless it's just on the
Plus
fly or
the
any type of
candles.
any channeling, yeah, any candles, any channeling or cards or whatever, I like
Hmm.
candles. One candle generally. I don't
Yeah.
like multiple, but I cleanse my
And
cards with
even,
candlelight, so you can
I
do
don't
it
know if you do
after.
this, but even when I'm doing readings during that time, I will have a white candle going and or an incense that's like Palo Santo or something.
Yeah, any that's what
Hmm.
I was saying. Anytime I channel
Yeah.
at all, I have a candle going, and that's just my preferred way of
Hmm.
opening up. It's not just for protection. It's not just for cleansing. I use it actually as an
Hmm.
on-off switch because if I don't want to
Yeah.
channel, if I want to live my life and not be bombarded by visions and stuff, it's not
Hmm.
constant, but sometimes it can be, and you have to turn
Yeah.
that off. That's how I've learned how to turn it off. That's an agreement I made with my spirit guides and whatnot. Like if the candle's burning, give it to me
Hmm.
full force. But if it's not, I
Hmm.
don't want it. Just and you get to a point that it has to be because people for the folks that are still like that are coming online, the quote that I call it online, or you're still getting used to it. It's really cool and you get really excited about it, but you have to understand your boundaries, and that is part of spiritual
Yep.
protection. You have to know how to cut it off to the most part. Sometimes technically it's never completely cut off because I constantly use my discernment to make decisions. But as far as channeling in
Hmm.
spirit, that is what I want to cut off. Because then I'll channel all day long. It's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for your mind. It will cause disease in
Hmm.
your body. It'll cause a lot of problems. So that is part of spiritual
Mm.
protection, that I think everybody should
I-
learn if
I'm
you're going to do
guilty of
this
that
type of work
sometimes of not turning
specifically.
it off. Sometimes I forget.
Right, but also you have to
Yeah.
learn how to, and it's going to be different for everybody, and that's something that we can tell you our ways, but our ways may not work for you, so you have to
Hmm.
find your way, and that comes with your own channeling spirit and your own
Yep.
discernment, right? So, and your intention
Hmm.
as well. Dun, dun, see, these words are going to go throughout
Yeah.
this whole episode, I swear. Yeah, and I mean, just any type of divination tool you can technically cleanse. Like
Mhm.
if you have spirit boxes and stuff, if you really wanted to go that far, you could keep like a black tourmaline and a clear
Yeah.
quartz in the box in your, the paranormal equipment that you use. But just know if you're going out hunting for ghosts or demons or whatever they want to put on YouTube these days, if you're going out doing that, you're opening yourself up to potential problems. And that's why you need spiritual protection when you
Mhm.
do that. So I think that pretty much wraps up our second half, except for maybe, I think we got one question left before we jump in, maybe a couple. Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
we have a couple questions left, though,
Yeah.
kind of as a transition into part three. So, Emily, why would you avoid putting yourself in harm's way? Why would you want to avoid maybe going ghost hunting or putting yourself in a position with somebody that may not be spiritually
Because
sound?
I don't want their friggin' attachments or any of their spirit problems to affect me because, it sucks when it happens. And yeah,
Right,
so you don't want to be doing that. Or if you're like Zach Bagelbites, you don't want to harass spirits and, poke and prod at them when you don't need to be doing that because they'll knock you on your ass.
right, right. It's already enough. There's a fine line. See, I love all things haunted, but as I've gotten older and I've started doing this work, it does bother me a little bit because you have earthbound spirits attached to a place that they need to go. They still have a choice on whether or not they want to cross over, and sometimes divine spirit can't get them crossed over, right? But your job as a medium, like I'm saying, our jobs as a medium is to cross over, for example, earthbound spirits, because that's where they're supposed to be. And without it, then you have a haunting.
Mhm.
That's just one example. So we go in these places and we're kind of like almost agitating the problem.
Yep.
So you have to ask yourself, is it morally
I would
right?
say
You
no.
know,
Unless I feel like there's a difference though, if you're doing it for entertainment versus research purposes to then help other people.
right, and I get that, and they've had to. Like, we've had to go in these places, and people that set the path for this type of content to be able to be made available to the
Mhm.
public. You look back, 40 years, there was movies and stuff, but this was
Mhm.
unacceptable to talk about in the
Yeah.
open. But it's just a thought that, I've been having about people and people that want to do ghost hunting and stuff, really think about that, because if your intentions aren't pure, then you might just come back with more than you bargained for. And that's why you need spiritual protection.
Full circle. you know,
Yeah, truly.
Just
And it's
and I'm
just a
gonna bring
thought.
up Duran as an example. Like talking to him, I really like talking to him, and I really respect the fact, like his motives for doing what he does, because he's not doing it for entertainment purposes. He's doing it strictly for research purposes and for, getting as much knowledge as he can so he can spread awareness. That's why he investigates his haunted items and he goes to haunted locations and stuff.
Right. And that's a good
Yeah.
method. That's a really good method. The thing about like going to haunted houses that are set up that way, which I'm not opposed to, I don't want to,
Mhm.
get anything crossed here, is like, as a medium, I go there, I see a little girl spirit that
Hmm.
I guess is a little girl, maybe, who knows, but let's say it is
Yeah.
really a little girl spirit that hasn't crossed over. I would get in trouble. That's actually in the contracts for some places if you're going to go, because I've been
Mhm.
looking, obviously, and just hearing other people's experiences. You are not allowed to cross over the ghost there.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't have a
I know
haunting
it's
if they
their
did.
money source. I'm
Yep,
sorry. If I see
yep,
a little girl that's a
exactly.
legit little girl, I'm just gonna be like, I'm crossing her over. Just don't tell anybody.
Your house ain't gonna be haunted no more, beach. No, we're never gonna be invited anywhere now.
Well, you
Oh
know
no.
what?
I'm just saying.
Don't be exploiting children, whether they're alive or dead. I don't care if they're alive or dead. My ear's ringing now.
Exactly.
It's really high pitched.
Exactly. Yeah, it says
He's like, Archangel Michael's like,
yes.
hallelujah. I'm just kidding. He's not saying that specifically.
Yeah.
So, yeah, guys. So, when it comes to purposely putting yourself into danger, again, haunted items, just by, if you know you're getting something haunted and you're buying it on purpose just so you have a haunted item, that is an example of putting yourself in danger. And I do not recommend
Yep.
it, especially if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. Again, nobody's exempt
Yeah.
from being spiritually attacked in any way, shape, or form. Doesn't matter if you have abilities or you're awakened to your abilities
Mhm.
or not.
Oh,
So,
and here's another one. TikTok. Don't do the stupid rituals that people try to get you to do on there as challenges, because bad. That's bad. You're going to get problems. I already had a client that did one of the rituals cuz he thought it was, a joke, and he then learned what it's like to have a demonic haunting.
yeah, if you have no experience or background in doing any type of rituals or anything like that, witchcraft, anything, don't
Mhm.
do it. It doesn't matter if you're worshiping a deity or not. Just don't do it because you need to learn about it. Take your
Yep.
time. You know, you have to take your time with these types of things. It's not something that you're going to Google and just do. Never a good idea. So we have now reached part 3,
Da-da-da-dong.
which is spiritual protection
Yes.
tools. Okay. So, spiritual protection is something that has been around longer than any of us. It's been around for thousands of years. It's been done in many different ways. You have Eastern, Western, different types of beliefs and practices. And this is kind of a modge podge. So, us Westerners, we have a modge podge of beliefs, things that we've picked up. Also, individually, I can say things I've picked up from different places that does actually work. And it is fair to say at this time, depending on what you're trying to protect yourself against, certain things work better than others. And certain, like sage might work really well for one person, but for somebody else
Mhm.
it don't. And there could be a multitude of scenarios on why it did or did not work. So keep this in mind.
Yes.
Everything we're saying here is fluid to a degree because the paranormal is predictable. Once you understand the type of energy that you're working with, it all goes bye-bye in the same way for the most part. If it's elemental, it goes bye-bye in a different way than a
Mhm.
demon would. It goes bye-bye in a different way than a thought
Yeah.
form would. Thought forms,
Yeah.
for example, have to be healed through trauma, like healing trauma a lot of times, and that's a process. So just keep all that in mind. I don't want to go on a
Mhm.
tangent when we start to talk about spiritual protection tools. So Emily, would you like to start off our list?
Yes.
Hey there, curiosity connoisseurs! Are you intrigued by all things strange, weird, and unusual, but too embarrassed to talk with your friends and family about it?
Well, we're your family now.
Join me, chronically curious Katie,
And me, combat veteran Chris, as we don our tinfoil hats and question everything.
from crazy mysteries, out-of-this-world conspiracies, and the unbelievable happenings all around us.
Let's try to stay sane as we laugh and explore together through our podcast, Stop Thinking with Your Butt.
Wherever you like to listen.
What's up, everybody? My name is Kevin, and I host this little podcast called Where Weird Ones Are. I talk to people about their personal experiences with paranormal and the supernatural, extraterrestrials. We get into conspiracies. I also talk about spirituality, all of those things that are weird. Where you can find the show is on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and Rumble. If you want to be featured on the show and tell your stories, your encounters, email me at wheretheweirdonesare@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Instagram, where_theweirdonesare.
Hey Lant fam! Have you been thinking of starting your own podcast venture? If so, consider using Podbean as your one-stop shop for everything podcasting. You can create, record, host, distribute, monetize, and merge your podcast all from the Podbean mobile app or your desktop setup. Podbean offers a 4-tier pricing plan that is sure to fit everyone's podcasting needs, starting with the free basic plan for anyone that signs up with an account. Chas and I currently use the Ultimate Audio plan that starts at $9.99 a month for a yearly subscription, and it really has been the most valuable tool as new podcasters with minimal equipment. Honestly, I just use my iPhone and iPhone headphones, and she just used her tablet without her headphones. So it's like, even if you don't have a desktop computer, you could still record from any mobile device. It's awesome, and it still sounds great. Use our link in the show's description box below, or visit www.podbean.com/lamp. That's LAMP to start your podcasting journey. By using this link, you will receive 1 month of Podbean's Ultimate Plan for free. You won't regret it. As always, thank you for your support, and now back to the show. So, since you brought it up kind of like as your example, I was going to say healing traumas is a good actual spiritual tool, especially against some thought forms. Not all thought forms, but some thought forms.
Yes, it just depends on the situation. Technically, everybody needs to heal their trauma, because trauma is like an open wound. So I'm seeing like spirits showing me somebody with an open wound on their arm, kind of gross actually, and they're pouring salt in it. Until you close that wound, stuff can come along like salt, get in it and burn. It's like putting hand sanitizer on when you have a cut on your finger. I know, weird analogy. I'm just weird. Okay, I get it. But the point is like, your trauma and your wounds, you have to be healed, and your spiritual journey will evolve at a more rapid rate through your healing.
That's why we preach it in almost every single episode.
Yeah. So, and I know some people don't agree with that, but when you have trauma, it just provides a doorway, and it goes back to perception. Like if you have a perception of, if you got hurt by a man, you have perception of men, same kind of, in a way, it's different perceptions. Until you are able to overcome that and trust somebody again, then, you can, excuse me, tits. Hold on. My throat's sore. It's been sore for 2 days.
The issue in my ear went to my throat, and it has not fixed itself yet.
That's fucked up. Okay. Maybe we'll be able to get through this in the time before the 2 hours is up. I think we will.
Good. So
I'm good.
I wanted to add too, with the whole trauma thing. We always say that things that happen here in the physical always has the same effect, but in the spiritual. So it's like, that's why it's very important to heal the traumas too, because you don't know what it's creating in the spiritual as well as the physical.
Right. Even a spiritual person, it can still have blinders because it's your trauma. So that's just a good thing to keep in mind. So at the top of the spiritual protection tool list in our tool bags, yep, we're the Tim the Toolman Taylor now, is divine help for me.
That's like the number one.
Yeah. Again, we don't do this by ourselves. This is not something that we're out here, fighting. It's not like out here like Batman fighting crime. No, we actually have divine help to do what we do and what you do. We have divine help every day. You always ask for divine help through the God of your understanding. That's the best way I can put it. And prayer, or
I was going to say, and your spiritual team.
Right. Exactly. And prayer as well, or intention, however you want to put that, because prayers and intentions are similar, right? So you have to have those two things, in my opinion, to tackle anything. Is that even in ritualistic situations and people that actually practice a certain type of witchcraft, and I'm meaning positive, that's all still there. It's not just for divine help, and prayer or intention is not just for people that are religious. It is a spiritual thing as well. And also asking for help from others, that are in the field of spiritual protection, or even just, even if they're not, just having somebody else's opinion that's intuitive, even if you have to hire services or not, it's important to sometimes get a fresh perspective on what's going
Yepper
on.
doodles. Sometimes you
Hmm.
need a deliverance or an exorcism, and you have to do that through somebody else.
Yep, it can't always be done just through yourself and others, because sometimes your intentions can be
Mm-hmm.
blocked by certain dark and
That's
nasty
for sure.
things.
And then we have holy oil or holy water. Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's very helpful a lot of the times, if you're getting spiritually
Yeah.
attacked. Holy oil or holy water is good for that, and blessing houses, and places and
Mm-hmm.
stuff
And when
like
I'm
that.
attacked through my
And
health and stuff, I just put it on my chakras and I'm Gucci.
yeah, and sometimes I put it, so yeah, I start at my crown and I'll go down to my root, but sometimes I also will put it on the back of my neck, and then like full body protection. I add it on both sides of my shoulders, or back of my neck, both sides of my shoulders, both sides of my hips, and both sides of my ankles, and it's like a complete barrier. It has stopped things in its tracks before, and then sometimes it's slowed it down. And then also meditation. Meditating will bring you clarity and answers. It's very
Mm-hmm.
important to understand meditation. I will take a moment just to insert that a lot of these things that we're talking about now, we have covered those more in depth in previous episodes. That's why we're not going into
Mm-hmm.
extreme depth here. I just in case you're a brand new listener, you can
Mm-hmm.
always check out our other episodes, and they're titled accordingly for the
Yep.
most part.
And with meditation, you can, create and manifest your barrier if you're someone who needs visualization to do that.
Yep. That's how we do some of our spirit. That's how we do our
Yeah.
spiritual walkthroughs, is through a form of meditation, whether that's laying down. It can be instantaneous. It can be over time. It just depends on the person and the
Mm-hmm.
situation.
Exactly.
Then we have like, yeah. And then we have like medallions and spiritual
Mm-hmm.
items. So like, people use the cross, for example,
Yep.
prime example, but you also have different types of religious or spiritual symbols. You have runes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can always find your method of a medallion you wear. That's been done forever.
Mm-hmm.
Rosary beads, stuff like that.
I was gonna say, like in a lot of Catholic or Italian families that practice Catholicism, they have like the medallions, and I think is it like the saints, the Catholic saints, and
Yeah.
yeah. So I know like some family members have like the Catholic saint medallions and crosses and rosaries and stuff.
Yep. Exactly. And that can go to any type of
Mm-hmm.
symbol that works with your personal beliefs. But that's a great example. I mean, you see that everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Some people use the third eye, for example. Some people think the third eye is evil. Some people think it's, wards off evil. There's different perspectives. But that's also an example of an item like a medallion or
Yep.
something like that. A big one is candles. So people do candle work. That's the other type. Generally, just a white candle represents purity. Exorcism, it represents just in general, like purifying, and it can actually be used as in place of any other colored candle. If you want to get into that type of work, that's something you definitely don't want to just look into one night and give it a shot. Something you need to learn about, and learn about the different metaphysical properties of the colors, of the ingredients. If you're using herbs or flowers or anything like that, you definitely want to take a look. But if you just want to clear out the energy in your space and you don't have anything, a candle will
Mm-hmm.
do that. Just a simple white tea light candle goes a long way in a room. Now, I wouldn't say it would be good for the whole house, but it will cleanse a space. If you take multiple tea light candles, then you definitely can clear your house out. But it works just the
Yep.
same.
And then you have essential oils and, incense, like things that have like scents.
Yeah, like so incense is smoke, and different incense, for example, like frankincense and myrrh, they have metaphysical
Mhm.
properties. So everything has its own set of physical properties, but then in the spirit, again, mirrored, there's metaphysical properties. This isn't believed by everyone, but different essential oils and herbs and flowers, like I was saying, they all have different metaphysical properties which are said to benefit us in the spirit, in a spiritual sense. So you can use
Mhm.
a diffuser for like your essential oils, like lavender is a very protecting scent and a calming scent. You can actually use that for your space as well. So you put out the positive energy to push out negative energy. Yeah. So putting out positive energy in the room with the
Mhm.
candle, with the incense, with, the essential oil, with the
Yep.
sage, for example. It would be a good time to go ahead and just really talk about sage too, just as an example for herbs. You can burn different types of herbs to clear. It's not just about sage. You have mugwort, you have a bunch of other different things that you can do, but sage is the most commonly used one. The one thing about sage is it is said that it rids a space of all energy.
Yes.
It leaves a void. So sage, we use it a lot, but again, there's a lot of other different things that we can use to cleanse our space. It's not just about the sage. And when it comes to herbs, and then you have wood, like
It's Palo
I say Palo
Santo.
Santo.
But like with the sage, you got to make sure you do it right or you're in trouble.
Yeah, and we're going to go over that at the very end of the podcast one more time. We've already done it this season, but since we're talking about spiritual protection, we're going to cover that briefly again on how to properly cleanse your space. Because if you don't, then you can actually trap stuff in your space instead of make it flee,
Mhm.
energy wise, energy speaking. And the wood, the Palo Santo wood, it actually is said to add positivity back into the environment. So after you use sage, it's important to burn an incense or something of the such. In my personal opinion, not everybody agrees with that, and that's fine. It's just what I do. Or use the wood stick to be able to
Mhm.
put back positive energy in a space. It's whatever you're trying to do when it
Yeah.
comes to metaphysical stuff. I have a guide that helps me with that. So I've
Mhm.
learned about it, right? But then when it comes to ingredients, I have a guide that helps me choose what I need to use for a specific purpose. It's actually really cool. I enjoy
Mhm.
making
I
stuff
like
like that.
burning the sage and Palo Santo at the same time. Yeah.
Right, right. And there's nothing, yeah, you can do it. Nothing wrong with that. You can do it however you would like to do it. Just as long as it's
Yes.
done in a proper way. That's the only thing you have to watch out for. But then next we have water. So
It's my
Emily, she
favorite.
definitely loves to do her cleansing. Yeah, her cleansing baths. You want to tell people about
Yes.
cleansing
So
baths?
typically, depending on the situation, like if it's a health thing or just a mental thing, it depends on like what I will put in it. And a lot of times like I'll feel that I want to put it in like put in certain ingredients and then I'll just double check it on the internet, make sure it's like good stuff and not something that's gonna do the opposite because you know how negative entities can try to influence our thoughts. But so I always double check that. But yeah, I'll throw in like certain ingredients like special salts, herbs and stuff because water is very cleansing and you can even use ice because ice is a type of crystal and again it's water so it's purifying and then you just put the intention in the water and pretty much soaky.
Yep. Yeah, water is cleansing in general. It could be a bath, it could be, and rivers and streams are really
And
good for clearing out
oceans.
energy of the self. And yep, and objects like crystals and stuff. Some people run like if they have water safe crystals.
Mhm.
Some crystals are not water safe. Water safe crystals, you can cleanse
Mhm.
them in running water.
I was gonna say I put some
I
rose quartz
personally,
in the bath sometimes.
yep, you can do that as well. And just to make you a nice, relaxing bath in a
Mhm.
shower, even just a shower. Have you ever noticed if you're in a shit mood and you just go take a shower, you feel better afterwards
Yeah.
because you're washing away
Yep.
all the negativity,
Or
okay?
if you're
And
me and you have to do something impulsive like dye your hair and cut it.
right.
Yeah.
Right. There's different ways, and that boosts like your
Yeah.
mental illness or self-esteem one. So when you start shaving your fucking head. So
Not in a Britney
sorry,
Spears
I
kind
couldn't
of way.
resist. No, no, no. Not that way. I mean,
Very
if it makes
true.
you feel better though, I mean, great, go for it, you
Mhm.
know. But yeah, so you have different, and just water in general is cleansing. So just being by water, just being at a water source, a natural water source, invokes positivity. It clears out emotions. A lot of people go sit by like the river,
Mhm.
for example, and think. It's a place to think. It's like fishing, I guess you could say, in a way. When you go fishing,
Mhm.
you sit by the river, you think, you fish, you go home, you feel better. All right. And speaking of water, we have tar water. So, tar water is something that's new to me. I do not know the ingredients. I do want to find some tar water. I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure I can make some, but it is used in a similar way as holy water, and it can be put around your property to protect
Mhm.
anything from coming in. So, that's another type of tool you can use.
Yep.
And then, of course, crystals. So crystals, they have the same metaphysical properties, or similar, obviously. It's the same principle, metaphysical properties as herbs and, flowers and all that kind of stuff. So there's no real difference except it's a rock
Mhm.
and that's a flower. They have just different they have different metaphysical properties. So, for example, Emily said rose quartz. So, rose quartz is self love, just loving, positive happiness, just uplifting your mood. It's great for empaths. Rose
Mhm.
quartz is great for
For sure.
empaths. And we talk about using black tourmaline a lot. That's for banishing negativity. I think that's one of the
And
strongest
obsidian.
stones, in my opinion. Yep, obsidian too. Exactly. I've used both. They do have two different types of metaphysical
Mhm.
properties, but they're similar. And I think the energy off of each stone feels different. So I'll use black obsidian a lot of times to clear out my chakras. So if you're ever having any type of like fogginess in your brain, you can put the uh, obsidian on your forehead,
Yeah.
on your third eye, and it'll help clear that up a little bit.
Mhm.
Done that plenty times.
For sure. You
Hmm.
got your salt and you got your ash, and you can mix them together. Make black salt.
Yeah. Yep. Salt. A lot of people use salt for different things. Um, so you can put it around your house. I use salt. I don't use salt as barriers. People use them to
Mhm.
make protection circles. If you practice that kind of way or whatever, if that's part of your thing. Some people do it like that. Some people put it in the
Yeah.
window. It's even can be used as an experiment in paranormal situations. Like one of my clients was instructed to put out a jar of salt, or like a tub of salt, to see, and it says that certain types of entities can't resist putting their
Oh,
fingers in it, like as a mockery. Yeah, like demonic. Yeah, that's one way to test for demonic
I did
things,
not
which
know
I found
that.
very interesting, because it's like, oh, this don't affect me. So it'll rule stuff out.
It's
That's
like
a
when he
certain
eats the
belief and
cross
practice.
across the room.
Um, yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, you have different ways you can do that. That's
I was
another
just
thing, though, you
thinking
have to be
that
really
because you don't want
careful
to trap
with.
things in
Yeah.
either.
Yep. You can trap stuff in and whatnot. There's different color salts, there's different types of salts. I
Mhm.
like making black salt, for
I use it
protection
in my
and
candles.
whatnot. And, mm-hmm. And last but not least, really, we have one that's really important that probably should have been up at the top. Oops. That's your own
Mhm.
energy. That's your own light, your divine light. A lot of people naturally just
Yep.
radiate light. And if you're one of those people, you'll notice that people tend to treat you like
Mhm.
shit sometimes. Like a lot of the times. And that it's not anything, it's not like, oh, you're super awesome special. No, it's just the more pure of heart you are, the more your intentions are aligned with positivity, the more light you push out, which darkness in any form does not like light. If somebody's harboring darkness through their own trauma, through an entity, through just their personality, not everybody
Mhm.
is nice. and they don't carry that type of light, so they tend to avoid
Yep.
somebody with light, right? So it's powerful. If you learn how to direct and use that, and during meditation, pull it in and get associated and familiarize yourself with using your own energy field and your light, you can deflect things.
So, like with the white light, you can manifest barriers and things to push things away and cleanse and purify spaces and yourself.
Yep. Yep. And there is a way to
Mm-hmm.
remote view and do that too. But that is very advanced,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to know what you're doing. So this isn't something you're going to be able to do. You can visualize. Visualization is even, I could say, a subcategory.
Mm-hmm.
Visualization is very important. But yeah, vision work is some of the best work to do when protecting yourself. And this is where certain people have certain experiences, like Emily and I. And there's other people that, just people. They don't have to be practicing mediums or anything to have these types of visions and experiences. Again, just talking about my client, that we had the same vision of cutting the black vines away from the house. That's one of those types of examples. So vision work is really important.
Mm-hmm. It can also build your confidence, because when I was starting out, I would do like practice where I would be in a battle simulation and just set up like a training ground with things to practice with, like my weapons and things. And it helped me gain enough confidence to where I was confident enough to fight things when I was attacked.
Right, right. And see, I don't have experiences like that personally. I see things, but sometimes I do, but it's a little different for me. I use light to clear spaces. I use my light energy to clear spaces. I have punched a couple things in the face type things, or
Mm-hmm.
Hulk slammed them in the ground and weird shit. It sounds weird, right? Not everybody's going to be able to do that though, because not everybody works in that type of way energetically. And it's okay if you don't. You don't have to do that. It's not like technically a level thing. Like, some
Mm-hmm.
people will never be able to achieve a visualization technique as well as others, because we're all built
Well,
differently,
there's
and that's
also
okay.
there's people that can't hear their thoughts when they think, and some of them can't visualize stuff like in the same kind of thing, if that makes sense. And I don't know if it's
Right.
like the same people who can't hear their own thoughts can't visualize stuff, or if it's like two separate things, but I
I'm
know.
sure it's same and different. I'm sure it's both
Mhm.
ways.
But like for me, doing visualizations for warm-ups are very, very helpful for practice and things,
Yeah,
in addition to
absolutely.
just fighting as well.
Absolutely. And we have, I think, technically three more. If you are interested, or if you are practicing any type of alchemy, witchcraft, or stuff like that, and we're speaking in a positive way, there's different ways you can protect yourself with that kind of work as well. I'm not going to go deeply into it, but they use candle work, different types of things, herbs, and just nature in general, which is one of the topics.
Hmm.
But it's just valid to say, like, that is one way people spiritually protect themselves. And plus, again, there's all different types of practices out there. That's not just witchcraft. Obviously you got shamanism. You
Yep.
have tons of different things we don't even know about because we're Westerners,
Mhm.
right? Yep. And then sound healing and frequencies.
Yep. So,
So a lot of, yeah, you go ahead, and I know you got something to say about this one.
yeah, so like you can use like certain frequencies, like if you want to look up a YouTube video, and some temples have natural frequencies to them, and I can't think of which one I was gonna say, but I know on an episode of Ancient Aliens, there's a temple that actually was created by the civilization that who built it, created the frequency 1111 in their temple purposely because it is a healing thing, and they wanted it to be a sacred space. And
Yeah.
that is a really good one. And like I said, you can go on YouTube or wherever and find some healing frequencies. You can go for the Gregorian chants if you want
Yeah.
to.
So those are ancient, like Catholic, based in
Catholicism.
Catholicism. And they pretty much, it's things that I found that people play, because I don't have a Catholic background at all. So I didn't know about this until recently. And basically, you can play these sounds, and you can also do it with Christian music. People do it, but these are like ancient songs that you play at a low volume throughout your house all day, and it's supposed to drive away negativity. um Churches and stuff like that, they have like a set, they sometimes create packets and have like a set way of letting you answer questions, and it helps them determine how much spiritual help you need.
Yep.
And some people go that route, and that's okay.
I have a
You
client
know.
that's doing that right now because
Yeah.
I can't drive to her house and do an exorcism because I live further away.
Right. And, depending on what it is, not everybody should try to ever perform an exorcism.
Yeah.
Like, that's important to say too. Like, I've been around that personally,
Mhm.
and it is scary. Like,
Mhm.
movies don't do it justice. You we are gave. I'm a firm believer in this, and some people don't believe that. So people that, in the Catholic faith, they would never try to do that to somebody else, for example.
Mhm.
Even in Christian faiths, they would, some denominations would never try to do that themselves. And then other types of Christian faiths, they definitely believe that we are gave the gift of deliverance. Like, we are able to provide that, and in one way, shape, or form. And I resonate with that
Mhm.
personally.
I do too.
I think, yeah, I think that we have the ability to, but it's still something that has to be learned. You
And you
definitely,
have to do it with divine help.
yeah, and it's the light. To me, it's the light within you that's
Mhm.
given to you by divinity
And I'm
itself.
very confident I can do it.
Right. And
Mhm.
then you have with sound healing, because there's one thing is too, is drumming. So a lot of people actually cleanse out earth energy lines with drumming.
Yep,
And
I've heard
that's,
of that.
ancient. Yeah, it's ancient. And pretty much the drumming and the rhythm, and like they'll do chants and prayers and different things. That's been done for thousands of years, but people still do that in certain
Mhm.
practices, and just energy work in general, to be able to heal people, but not just for people, to heal the earth, calling back energies and stuff of the such. Because if you're in a place, like we're talking about places that are fucky or funky and they have bad energy, a lot of times that's one of the things they'll resort to be able to clear out the energy. And Gaia has the ability to heal herself, right?
Mhm.
So it is definitely part of sound healing and frequencies. And then, of course, you have singing bowls, you have chimes, you have all kinds of things music wise. Music is very much tied into frequency and sound, obviously, because it's music. So
Mhm.
it can, it's fair to say, too, the type of music you listen to. Now, some people would disagree with this, and I used to be one of them. But certain types of music that I used to listen to, I cannot listen to anymore, because I hear and feel the darkness from it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you want to even throw in a little science, psychologically it can do things to you. And there's actually studies that have been done on this. And a good example is like certain tempos and certain like the quickness of beats and things. It's like it can affect your mood and your overall state of being. And it's very similar to how like we were talking about the rice experiment and like the water experiment. Like if you shout things at it in a negative way, it reacts differently than when you say positive affirmations to it. And it's very similar with how music works. And like a good example, people who listen to like techno or quick beat music like that tend to drive faster on the road than slower music, and it's been proven.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But I did
Yeah.
it with metal.
Yeah.
I am the
If it's
metal.
aggressive
Yeah.
music, they can do that too.
Yep. And different types of music, like she was saying, it creates a pattern. So a lot of times, if it's something pleasant at a pleasant frequency, it creates a beautiful geometrical pattern. And if it does not, then it actually creates like chaos. It's not anything with beautiful lines and patterns and imagery. It's actually just chaotic. So I've seen some of those images and it's very fascinating.
I was gonna say, like, I can't listen to rap music at all. Like,
Right.
especially if they're talking about, like, sex, drugs, like, abuse, I cannot do it.
Right. And that's part of the negativity part.
Mhm.
Yeah. And sound healing is definitely, really important. And I think it's an area for me that I would like to study more. Like, I
Mhm.
know I want to study more about sound healing and frequencies. I know we've probably left a few things out, but there's tons of different types of sound healing.
Mhm.
And then lastly is nature itself.
Yep.
So nature is healing for everybody, grounding wise. That's why they say take your shoes off and go walk around in the grass or
Yep.
in the field or whatever. Watch out for snakes. I'm kidding. But like not really. I'm actually not, especially right now. But for real, like you want to be out in nature now. If you're in a place that is not healed, if you're in a sick place, there are places on the earth that are sick that causes negative energy entities, beings, all kinds of different things. Obviously that's probably not the best place to go healing yourself.
Especially
You want to find
graveyards.
right. And I find that graveyards are actually fairly peaceful. Honestly, I do. Sometimes I got the heebie-jeebies, but for the most part, I feel like honor and respect a lot of times.
Well, I'm talking
And
about,
that's
like, where, like, battles and shit where people are just buried there. I don't mean, like, cemeteries.
okay. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, there's
that's
two different
yeah.
things.
Two different scenarios. I got what you mean. Yeah, and I wouldn't recommend going to Gettysburg on the battlefield and taking your shoes off and
Yeah.
soaking it all in. No, we're not going to do that today. But you guys get it. It's kind of elementary, but it's fair enough said because some people are really, really, really new to this. So we just want to cover all bases.
You know what I started doing really before I even knew I had psychic abilities, and I have no idea why I started doing it. I just started doing it out of the blue. Every time
What's
I
that?
would be driving or in the car, if I would see roadkill on the street, like, I would just envision white light around that, like, dead animal. And, or, I don't know, I used to, like, do this thing where I would do, I don't know, some kind of hand motion. Now I can't think of what the hand motion is.
You're talking about when you were a kid?
Like, early 20s.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. And just, like, I don't know, I just felt like it needed to be purified.
That's your Aurora connection.
Oh.
I mean, like the Disney character where you were connected with the
Yeah.
land and the trees and the animals and stuff like that. So it's like it was almost like you were, what's the word? Reverence. You're paying, like you're acknowledging
Yeah.
it. Is that?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Oh, I know.
Used to do.
I know what the hand motion is. I would tap with my fist my left shoulder, or like heart with my fist. It was weird.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I've heard of people doing other things, like paying respect. To me, that's what it seems like. I don't know. I'm not you. I mean, that's what I'm assuming. But like paying respects to different things. It's like seeing, I get it. I get what you're saying. Faux show. Well, guys, those are the ways or the things, the tools, the items that you can use to protect yourself. Now, if we went into every single one of these and just, hashed it all out, we tried to cover, the basics. And it's actually a little more than the basics. It's fairly extended, but this episode, we're not going to take a deep dive in each one of these things. We'll probably save that for a later time. But, you can find information about every single one of these with Daddy Google, or you can always ask us or somebody else. I mean, ask somebody if that's in practicing in
Yeah.
their own spirituality or religion, like wherever you're comfortable, ask questions. You know, there's a lot of people that do this type of work in one way or another. They're always very open to give you an answer because ultimately we want everybody to feel safe. That's why we do what we do. So now we are to how to properly cleanse your space and pretty much yourself. So you always, when you're cleansing a space, you know, everybody has a different layout and setup, but the main thing to understand is if you're using sage or any other type of herb, you want to crack some windows, preferably. If that's not possible, try to at least crack like a door or something. Because some people live in older homes where like the windows have been nailed shut. Any way you can get any type of airflow. Preferably though, you want to crack a few windows. Some people like to crack one in every room. You know, that's cool. But the main thing is you have to start in the backmost part of your house. So let's say you have a 2-story house. I always use this as an example because you can cleanse the 1-story house the same way and just go out, the front door or the door that you use as your front door, for example. So don't want to jump ahead. But if you have a 2-story house and you go upstairs and in the from the furthest room away from the steps, bathroom, bedroom, whatever room it is, you want to start in that room and you want to work your way out to the entrance of the 2nd floor. When you get downstairs, you want to repeat the process, but you want to get to the furthest point or the furthest room away from your front door or the door that you use the most to go in and out of. For me, I use my back door sometimes more than my front door or vice versa. And depending on which door I'm using the most in my residence, I will push out the energy there. So you want to work your way from the back to the quote front door and push out. If you have a basement, you can choose. I prefer to push everything out the door I use the most to the entrance to the home, and that signifies that my door is closed to you. You're not welcome in my home. So if you have a basement, let's say you have a 2-story house and a basement, so you will go downstairs, and even if, let's say, if your basement door is in the hallway back away from the front door, that's fine. Make sure you have something cracked down there. You can cleanse that space down there and then come back upstairs and work your way towards the front door. And I hope that makes sense.
What happens if you have a walkout basement or you just have a door in your basement that leads outside?
Yeah, you can waft it out that door too.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I've done that before. You can waft it out that door, or you can push it back upstairs and push it out. Everything collectively out. You have a little wiggle room, but the most important thing is to push everything out. You want to get your closets. If you really want to go the extra mile, you can get like an attic space, but a lot of people don't do that for obvious reasons. Now that's the action. But while you're in each room, it is important to start again. If you enter the room you want to go to the opposite side, the furthest way from the entry, and start basically drawing the pattern of your walls, windows, and doors. That way you're taking the sage, for example, and you'll draw around the room and you'll draw out the windows. You seal your windows and doorways. And even if it's a closet door, always take extra time. And of course you do this, we left out probably the most important part. You always have like a prayer, an intention. You always want to like put on your own self-defenses. So you don't want to just start cleansing your house and, out of nowhere, like, it's time to cleanse the house. Let's do this. No, you have to have some type of spiritual preparation for this. And there's different ways to do that too. Like personally, I like to ground myself, center. I like to put on my own spiritual protection. I like to really get in the mood. I have went and cleansed places, and I got in the mood so much. By the time I got there, it had already left. I'm not joking, but it is funny.
Yeah.
Like, I swear I was on the way up there, and I guess because of the work that I do, because I can remotely cleanse certain things from the area, and I'm still working on getting better at that. Like, that's my ultimate goal. I'm talking about remote clearing. This is something more advanced that, I'm still learning about, because it can be dangerous. So we're just now talking about house cleansing stuff.
Yeah.
No, like remote cleansings, but that has happened before. But yeah, make sure you basically draw out your room and get the smoke good, going. Because sage, you definitely want to bring whatever you're lighting it with you, because sage can go out sometimes, and
Goes out a
you want to
lot.
have something to waft it. You want to have
Mhm.
something to catch the ash, unless you're okay with it falling on your ground. Most people aren't,
Starting
but it
fires.
happens. Yeah, exactly. But it does happen sometimes, so be aware of that. If you're using any type of herb, it can spark off. I've had that happen before. You can have things happen supernaturally while you're doing this. I set off an alarm, a smoke
Oh
detector
my god,
alarm,
I
and
do that so much.
yeah. Well, the creepy thing was, I wasn't even in that room,
Mhm.
and the door was closed, and the actual smoke alarm was right above me, and it set it off in another room.
Mhm.
And then after I walked around, it cut off. In the room that I went in, it cut off because it was so ear piercing, because it was so loud. It only set off one detector, but the other detectors were working.
Mhm.
It was because you had to, it's too fancy for me. It's like you had to open the door
Mhm.
and shut the door for the alarm to turn off.
Oh, because of the
I did.
airflow?
No, they're wired that way. From
Oh.
my understanding, yeah, I've never heard of anything like that. I think that's fancy, but that's kind of what happened. It was something fucky.
I
I don't
I
know.
was gonna say, like, when mine trip, I will open and close a door to create, like, wind with it to get it to shut the fuck up.
Hell yeah, you gotta waft stuff.
Yeah.
No, this was different. It was like you had to open and shut the door to make the alarm cut off, and I found that to be very odd and
So maybe it's
interesting at
like
the
to
same time.
check the room and make sure it's okay.
Yeah, pretty much, I assume, something like that. If
Mhm.
anybody knows, let us know in the comments below. That's pretty
Mhm.
cool. Anyways, that's our question we're asking you guys for the week. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. But yeah, so once you start to do this, you clear your space. If you're using sage, reintroduce some positive things, like a
Mhm.
nice white candle. Make sure you take a shower
Mhm.
too. You definitely want to cleanse yourself. Easiest way to do that, if you ever cleanse your home, is to bathe after.
Yeah.
That is like a common practice that's been done for many, 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 many years. When it comes to cleansing yourself and your home, it can be a lot more complicated than that. Just because you cleanse your home one time doesn't mean everything's going to go away. Sometimes it can. Sometimes you have to cleanse your house on a schedule.
Mhm.
Most of the time, normal situations, you might not have to cleanse your house at all, but it's recommended. You definitely want to do it once a year, being like real. Definitely want to try to do it honestly every 6 months. If you have no problems at all, probably would be better.
Mhm.
Or you can choose a day if
Spring
you've got.
cleaning.
Yeah, nothing exactly. You can do it however you want it. But if you have problems, depending on the type of problem and the severity of the problem, you will have to cleanse it with different things in different time frames. So there's more to it for sure. And I know we'll probably talk about some of those things when we talk about psychic abilities too.
Mhm.
So just keep that in mind, because
I
we
want
a
to
lot some.
say, like, when I do my cleansings of my house, I also, because outlining the doors and windows actually has helped me tremendously. And I always, when I do that, I imagine white light sealing each thing, along with shit being sucked out. And Liv from Metapsychics actually saw, like, the tornado sucking things out. And it was really cool to have that validation.
Right, and if you're into visualization and stuff,
Hmm.
that's definitely something you can do.
Yep.
If you are if you're able to do that, you can definitely do that for sure.
And I ask Archangel Michael or Gabriel to just help too in general.
Yep, because that's what I've done, I wouldn't recommend doing it if you're not advanced in doing stuff like that. I wouldn't recommend doing it if you see any type of entity unless you know what you're doing.
Oh
Doing it
yeah.
and just, yeah, doing it for just situations as like imagining white light and cleansing out the house, that's great. Do that. But
Mhm.
if you start to, and this I mean at the time, if you start to see an entity in your visions when you're doing this, because some people see have visions with their eyes open, because I do,
I
a
do
lot of
too.
people do, but I personally do myself. So I can have my eyes open and still be visualizing this stuff and then see something. So if you were to do that, that can happen. And if you're not prepared, you probably shouldn't be cleansing your house anyways if it's something really bad. I'm gonna be 100%. Like, you
Mhm.
need help. If you're just getting into this, depending on the person and where they are, that's when I'll suggest they can cleanse their house themselves. But it is an important time to say, sometimes depending on the situation you're in, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, where you're at and what's going on, sometimes you do have to have outside help to do this. So
Mhm.
there's a good warning for that as
Especially with
well.
sage, because that can piss off a lot of things.
It can, yeah, and there's other ways to get rid of certain things. Like,
Mhm.
if in the Fey realm, it's like iron,
Oh yeah, the
you know.
horseshoes and the nails.
Uh-huh. Yep. And you have, those are other types of objects. I actually meant to mention that, like, as when it comes to like medallions and, certain like Appalachian folk magic traditions, people would take and put nails in a jar in a mason jar by their door
Mhm.
to prevent. And then the corn cobs above the door, certain things like the corn cobs, the dried corn cobs are protective, they say. The horseshoes and stuff of the such. A lot of folklore involved in that kind of stuff too, which I know there's tons out there. We could never talk about all of them
Yeah.
in one episode. Trust me, it would have to be, you know what I mean? It'd have to
Yeah.
be just a series. You could talk about that kind of stuff, honestly, in a series.
All right, so now cleansing yourself. So you can't just cleanse your space, you got to cleanse yourself. And sometimes it isn't even the space that's haunted, it could be the person. And so it's really important to do, some things to help cleanse yourself. And so we already spoke about deliverances and exorcisms in like really bad situations and using water and baths and stuff, but you can also, like, you sage your house and use Palo Santo in your house. You can do it with yourself, and pretty much you start at the top of your head or above your head and then work your way down. And I do it like in a cross way because of your shoulders and stuff. And it's more
Yeah.
that than just like a religious thing, even, you know what I mean. But
Yeah. I do the same as well with different things, depending on what I'm trying to do. Yeah,
yeah, because
for
like
sure.
with the holy oil, because you can use that too, it's like you want to make sure you don't miss anything because things like to get in the nooks and crannies. But then, we always talk about Reiki, and we already spoke about Reiki in a previous episode. So you can always go back and listen to that. But you can use Reiki as a way to energetically cleanse yourself. And along the same lines, you can also use crystals, so you can just use crystals or use crystals in addition to Reiki and use them use them as a tool in your Reiki practice. And
Yep.
if you can't do it yourself, you can always go to someone that specializes in it.
Yep.
hmm And
Absolutely.
I'm trying to think what else.
So I make essential oils.
Oh yeah.
I make essential oils for different types of things, and I use those for protection. I use them for enlighten. I guess you could say, like, opening my intuition. But
hmm
since we're talking about spiritual protection, yes. So you can have items like that for personal use, like roller balls. So
Yes.
I use that, and then also like mist sprays and stuff, like herbal mist sprays. You can spray uh, on yourself as long as they're safe. Of course, you don't want to just randomly buy something and spray
You
yourself with
can
it. That's for the
use
room.
the sage spray with energy mindfulness.
Yep, you can use yep. You could if you wanted to, but
Yeah.
it is kind of loud. But yeah, there's certain like body mists that you can buy. There's soaps you can
Yep. I've
use with
used
herbs in
those
them, and bath salts and stuff. I know we talked
lotions.
about.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about some of them, but to cleanse yourself, this is just part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can use all that type of stuff as well.
And like you do with your space, you can use the white light and divine guidance through your spirit guides and or other benevolent beings. And you know what's interesting too? Sometimes if my body goes a long time without being cleansed, I have this spiritual team of females that literally all wear the same thing. It's like they wear the navy blue like dress. It's like a long skirt thing, and their hair is always in a nice, perfect bun. And I'm laying there, and they're literally sucking out the negative energy that's sitting in my body.
That's interesting, and that's probably very helpful
Mm-hmm.
considering the stuff you pick up for sure.
Yep. So there are so
Yeah.
many ways. So when it comes to cleansing yourself, you can also use pretty much everything we said, like in the tools, but yoga, you can use in combination with other tools. Nature, you can use, like you said, with like putting your bare feet on the ground to uh get out all the negative stuff. And usually that's what helps me with the negative energy is I'll just go outside and visualize it coming out my feet and into the ground, and I feel better.
Yeah, and that's mixed with like meditation.
Yep.
So, yeah, so that's, I mean, everything can coincide with each other. It's not, they can be used on an individual basis or a separate basis. Cause like I use candles with herbs and flowers and oils and wood and salt
Crystals.
and ash. Yeah. And crystals. I use,
Mm-hmm.
so those are like the little candles that I make. So, I mean, it all can be used together. And when you find your methods that work is the best,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. And so that pretty much covers the basics for your house clearing and yourself and the way to do it properly. Again, before you do anything like that, do your research, find out what's going to work for you. But once you start to do this and you're having any type of problems with energy entity, this is specifically really for entities and beings and things that you just don't want around anymore. I've noticed this, and this is something that spirit kind of gave to me. It's something I've learned over time. Is that they start to back away slowly but surely. When you
Mm-hmm.
have an entity on you and in your energy field or interacting with you, I can use my client for an example. That's what happened with her. This thing was literally on her, hurting her chest, and like messing and manipulating with her energy, very close and personal, touching her and all that. Throughout working with her, this specific entity, and I had the knowledge to tell her this from past experiences. This is recent. I informed her, I said, the more we push this out, the further and further away it gets. I I can understand how this happens, like I understand why, but I can't really give you any more details than that. But whatever type of practices you're using, it pushes these things further and further back. And over a course of a few weeks, this thing got further and further away. The next time that she actually caught evidence, this is a validation for what I'm trying to explain, is kind of what I'm getting at. It was at the window. The next time she recorded evidence, it was at the tree. So this thing was getting progressively pushed further and further back from her. Is this every situation? No, nay, nay, it's not. Sometimes things are poof gone good, but if you're dealing with something that's very intertwined in you or your place, this is how I've personally seen it happen. Sometimes you have divine guidance and benevolent divine beings come in and pull them straight out and they're gone, or you cross things over, or you kick their ass out into another dimension, whatever the hell you're doing. Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes though, you have things like this back off. And we've talked about it, but I don't know if we've ever really talked about it to that degree.
Mm-mm.
And I personally haven't heard anybody else talk about it. I don't know if you've heard, besides, like, I know you've heard it from me, but I don't know if that's something that's commonly known.
I don't think it
Is-
is because I don't think I've ever heard it before you.
Right. So this is just, I'm just saying it might not be something everybody has heard. This is just something that I share from the experience of, just dealing with this type of stuff. I know one time I was talking to a girl about her situation, and as we were talking, I felt something about 50 yards. I know it was kind of far, maybe not 50, let's say 35 yards away from us, standing there watching. And it was it was something that was associated with her, but it was not allowed to get any closer. But it did. It eventually got closer, and it was like we almost called it. So talking about it can call it back too. We've had that experience a couple times,
Mm-hmm.
like when you give it energy, depending on where you are. So none of this is 100%. And I think it's like an important time to say that if you're a person having these issues, sometimes they can go away really fast, and sometimes it takes a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole backing off process, quote unquote, takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just from my experience.
And I think depending on the entity depends on everything too, because not everything is going to back off the same way, like you said. Some
Yeah.
might take way longer, and some might just be, okay, bye.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important to understand that when you're reaching out for help. It's not a quick fix.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, depending on what it is, sometimes it is though. But it depends on the person. If you open up the doors to let the stuff right back in, then
Mm-hmm.
you're bringing it to yourself, and
And
that is very possible too.
I notice too, sometimes it takes multiple sessions of cleansings to get rid of things. And just through experience of watching other people try to help other people. And if you notice, sometimes their clients will keep coming back because the problem isn't fixed, because they only did one cleansing, or they didn't tackle the source of the problem, which a lot of times, like we always say, could be the trauma aspect.
Right. Even in exorcisms,
Mm-hmm.
like they take time. Sometimes it doesn't just go one time and everything. Sometimes it does, but not all the time. So keep that in mind. There's a lot of factors there. So do not get discouraged if
Mm-hmm.
you are having, continual issues. It does get better over time, and knowledge is power.
Yep.
So ultimately, when you take all these things together, it is how you spiritually protect yourself. Some people just do it with prayer and they're okay with that. And some people prefer other ways. Some people won't go as far as making a herbal candle, and that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. All of these work in their own special way, and all of these can stand alone and help, or they can be merged together and help as well.
Yep.
So I hope that we were able to answer some questions and give some insight about spiritual protection today.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure we'll be talking a little more about it again throughout the series, because it's going to come up probably at some point when we're talking about psychic abilities here in the next couple weeks.
And, we're always learning too. We could, find entities or discover entities that we didn't even know existed. And then that's like a whole new bag of worms. And then they're going to have their own way of being cleansed, and so on and so forth. So it's like you're going to be learning with us as we keep going on this journey.
Right. And it's different. It's different for everybody. Every situation's different. But I can say, most of the time, if it's a particular type of entity, you can at least identify it by its traits. They are predictable. So that is the good news.
Mm-hmm.
That is the good news. They are predictable, and we have divine help. That is even better news.
Yep.
You just have to ask for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, because again, this sounds all like we're doing it. Nay, nay, nay. Nay, nay. So again, the most important thing about spiritual protection is belief, intention, and discernment. Those are the three things that I can say that you have to strive for. I'm not even going to say completely, fully possess those things. I'm saying like you have to strive for it, ask for it, and overall want things to be different.
Yep.
Because if you do not want it to happen, you are therefore willing it away.
And I don't know if we said this yet, but when cleansing anything, whether it's you and or your space, you have to say out loud or in your mind that you want it gone, because through the law of free will, nothing's going to happen if you don't say what your intentions are.
Yeah, definitely. Remember, you can write it down, which is really good for some people. It works really well. Speak it out loud, like she said, or you can use your thoughts. I would
Yep.
recommend mostly either writing it down or speaking it aloud.
Yep.
Unless you're practicing mediumship or you're a psychic. Even psychics and intuitives could do that. I wouldn't recommend doing it in your thoughts unless you know what you're doing fully.
Yeah, I like to do a mixture. I like to write it though, because it brings out more of the intention and makes it stronger.
Yeah, personally, I write most of my stuff, and I'll say it if I'm cleansing a house, or I'll think. I mean, I do all three too, but for most of my methods, I write my intentions down and what I need to happen, basically. But yep, that pretty much sums it up. If you guys have any questions, you can always message us with questions about spiritual protection. If you have any questions, if you need help, we do take that questions about that on an as needed basis. So we help the clients that are having the biggest problems first. You can reach out to me and Emily together, me and Emily separate, however you want to do it. And we'll do our best, because we sometimes it takes a lot to do just one case, guys. So if you have any questions, just be patient with us if we can't get right back to you. Well, I think that's a wrap, guys.
Yepperdoodles.
Hey, if you have a haunted story you want to share, you can email us at lightsatmidnightpodcast@gmail.com. Get in touch with us there. We'd love to hear from you. We really appreciate y'all hanging around and checking it out. And yeah, thank you so much. We are super excited to bring you some super awesome content. We really appreciate you guys checking us out.
Thank you to all that took the time to listen to this week's episode. Your support means the world to us. And remember, all of us have the ability to shine brightly and shed positivity, even in the darkest of places. Stay safe, stay well, and light it up!